Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. David O'Sullivan traveled all the way from Ireland to the United States of America in 2017 with one goal in mind: to hike the entire Pacific Crest Trail. He had practiced, and he had been hiking different spots throughout Ireland. He had saved money. David worked all through college and spent a whole year working afterwards, with all of his money going towards his savings so he could take 6 months off to hike the PCT. He read all the books. David loved to read anything he could get his hands on, and he was considered well educated. He watched the movie Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon. The movie was based on true events, the story of Cheryl Strayed's adventures while hiking the PCT. David was ready. In the spring of 2017, he flew from Ireland to California. His plan was to begin at the trail's southern end in Campo, California, and hike all the way through to the Canadian border. In April, he had a resupply stop in Idlewild, California. He had stayed for 2 nights at the Idlewild Inn to rest up and refuel. He sent an email to his family on April 6th, stating that he was getting back on the trail the next morning. But from there, they wouldn't hear from David again. With limited communication, they waited quite a while to hear from him. It was finally July 2017 when they officially reported David as missing. Where is David O'Sullivan? Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Where Are They podcast. And thank you all so much for your support of our show. David O'Sullivan was planning a through hike. He wanted to hike the entire length of the PCT, which runs from Campo, California, near the Mexico border, up to the Canadian border in Washington state. The entire PCT is 2,650 miles and passes through all kinds of terrain, open and airy, through mountains and wooded areas. Most hikers that take on the PCT are considered section hikers, and they will just hike parts of the trail at a time. Through hikes are more rare, and according to the park system, only half of the people that attempt a through hike will actually finish. It's much harder than most people imagine. The movie Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon, really brought the PCT to mainstream media. The story documents the true events of hiker Cheryl Strayed. This was the movie and book that inspired David to want to hike the PCT himself, even though he lived all the way in Ireland. He would make it a goal to research and save money so he could make the trip and complete the trail someday. David O'Sullivan was born August 29th, 1991 in Ireland. He grew up in Cork, Ireland, and he was very close to his family, which included his older brother Niamh, parents, grandparents, and many cousins. David is described as a happy, funny, smart, and easygoing guy. David did attend college, and during college, he worked as the MC of a local radio show and as a part-time comedian doing stand-up comedy shows. This was something David wanted to pursue as a career, either in radio or comedy, or perhaps both. David was an avid reader as well, and it was after the movie Wild came out, he would read the book by Cheryl Strayed, and he then made it a goal to hike the PCT from start to finish. After he graduated college with a degree in media, David worked hard to save money for his PCT trip adventure, which would take at least 6 months to do. He worked at a garage and he saved as much money as he could. His plan was to hike the entire PCT, all 2,650 miles of it, before returning to Ireland and starting his career in radio broadcasting. This was his dream, and David was determined to make it happen. In 2017, David was finally ready to take the trip to California and begin the PCT hike of his dreams. His plan was to start in Campo and head north from there. David began his hike north on March 22nd, 2017. David did not have a working cell phone with him, but he did take along his Kindle, and this is what he would use to communicate occasionally with family when he could connect to Wi-Fi, that is. And he did have planned stops along the way to restock supplies and rest and recharge. David told his family he would connect with them during those stops. He also told his family not to worry about him if they didn't hear from him for a while, because there was likely to be spotty service in some areas, and he would need to stop every so often to recharge his Kindle. On April 6th, he did send an email to his family back in Ireland. He had stopped at the Idlewild Inn for 2 nights to recharge and pick up some supplies, and he had ordered a Kindle charger, but it hadn't arrived. David mentioned in the email that he was going to continue on without it. Not having a charger for his Kindle could have played a pivotal role in his disappearance. As time went on, no one heard from David. After a while, his family really began to worry. But David had told them that he might be out of touch for a while due to spotty service on some parts of the trail. That's understandable. In May, David had planned to meet up with a friend in the Santa Barbara, California area near the trail. But David never showed up for that meeting. Days turned into weeks, and eventually in July, his family reported David missing. But by then, the trail was cold. Kathy Tarr, a volunteer who dedicates her time to searching for missing and lost hikers, specifically on the PCT, says that there are 5 different trails from the Idlewild Inn that lead back to the PCT, and no one is quite sure which trail David would have taken. So the search for him was tedious in the beginning. David's parents, Carmel and Con, flew to Southern California to search for their son. They worked with Kathy, who was a big asset to the couple who had no idea about the PCT or anything really about Southern California. Despite searches on foot and searches with drones, no sign of David was found. One concern was the higher altitude of the mountains. Those mountains had snowfall during this time, and his family believes that that may have hindered David. He was an experienced hiker back in Ireland, but he had never had to deal with snowfall. Officials did try to retrace his steps and confirm his last whereabouts, and they were able to determine that he was indeed at the Idlewild Inn on April 6th, and that he had also visited the library nearby and signed the guest book. But from there, they found no signs of David anywhere. In 2020, Kathy Tarr created a foundation in the name of David and another missing hiker that disappeared on the PCT in 2016, Chris Fowler. The foundation is called the Fowler-O'Sullivan Foundation. The Fowler-O'Sullivan Foundation continues to help locate missing hikers and help families through the process. Their website has all of their information. You can find them at fofound.org. There are places to sign up to volunteer if you are near the area, and there's a link to donate as well. I will put that website link in the show notes for you if you'd like to check it out. Carmel still worries about her son every single day, still praying for answers. There has been no activity on his bank accounts, and no additional clues have surfaced since he vanished 6 years ago now. Carmel said this about David in a recent interview. Quote, He would have been 30 this coming August. He is still 25 to me. He hasn't grown old. His friends are settling down between engagements, houses, and their careers. Life for them is great. And please God, it all works out for them. But he'll always be 25 for me, the boy who left home. End quote. David is described as a Caucasian male, standing about 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighing around 150 pounds when he was last seen April of 2017. He has dark hair and blue eyes. David also speaks with a thick Irish accent. During his last contact with family, he was said to be at the Idlewild Inn. The Idlewild Inn is in a fairly rural area, and no one is quite sure where he might have went from there when he left the inn. David had told people that his plan was to head towards the San Jacinto Mountains. Did David ever make it back to the PCT? If he did, how much further did he get from there? Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of David O'Sullivan is asked to contact Marietta Police Department at 951-696-3615. And again, I encourage you to check out the Fowler-O'Sullivan Foundation and see all the work that they do to help search and locate missing and lost hikers. Again, that link will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to David's story today. I can't imagine his family being from another country and trying to make sense of what happened to their son, and trying to keep up search efforts and awareness from across the globe. The PCT sees thousands of hikers each year, and only half of those that attempt to through hike it will make it. Many find it's much more difficult than they anticipated and planned for, not just physically, but also mentally, perhaps more so a mental challenge. If you are planning to hike the PCT, taking proper precautions and being prepared is key and could just save your life. You can find a wealth of information and resources at the Pacific Crest Trail Association website, pcta.org. And most importantly, be sure to tell someone your itinerary and your plans and check in with them regularly. Thank you again for listening to David's story, another tragic case of someone missing on the PCT. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing persons case. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.